Hey guys, this is one of my favorite units, and you can find these notes just below the video on Google Classroom. This is ecology, and kind of like wraps up everything that we've learned about and talked about this year. We generally don't spend a ton of time on it, although you could take a whole class on ecology, and it's super interesting. I'm going to give you like one little project maybe this week. It won't be very big or anything like that. But let's start off with just what ecology even is. So ologies are studies of, and actually means your house. So we're studying your house. But when we mean house, we're just talking about where you live. So this is the environment that around you, the environment of where you live. And we're studying that, not the actual building that you maybe live in. So if you hear the word ecosystem, because eco means house, it's the systems in which your house runs on. So what are the systems that keep the environment around us going? In your house, you might have a plumbing system, an electrical system, a sewage system. Those things are there to keep your house running, but we have systems in our environment as well that keep our environment running. So you might hear ecosystem, ecology kind of used together. But we're really studying the systems around us and the environment around us. There's a ton of keywords. You're welcome to look them over. I'm going to go through a few real quick here for you, and that way you get kind of a grasp of what I talk about here in the future. So the next slide here has a keyword, and that's what all these things have in common. And what you have to understand is they're not alive. So rain's not alive, sun's not alive, things like temperature, wind, rocks, they're not alive. Dirt itself is not alive either. Soil, there are living things in the soil, but the actual dirt part is not. So these things are all called abiotic. They're non-living. So if you drag up from the bottom of your notes, you'll find atmosphere, structures, buildings, sun, dirt, just a giant list of things that kind of kids came up with that are not alive, the seasons, things like that. But they all affect the systems around us. So they're very important. The flip of that is living things. All these things are alive, whether it's like a hawk, a spider, mushrooms, bacteria, the mammals and the insects around us. Don't forget about the green stuff like the plants. They're all alive. And we use the term biotic for living things. So just a little note if you don't know it, abiotic, anytime you prefix the word with something, with a, it means like not or non. So these are not living or non-living, and then these things are living, biotic. So this should be review for you too. The next slide here, slide 5. If we start off with the smallest living thing, which is a cell, we put a bunch of cells that kind of look alike, they work alike, they do like things. You'll get a tissue, and that was in the last unit as well. Once you have tissues working together, you can make an organ. And once you have an organ with multiple tissues kind of doing a job, you can put those together and make an organ system. And those systems inside of a body make an organism, a living thing, which is you. Okay. Now we take a bunch of organisms, so the same organisms, like let's say a bunch of deer, and keep them in a certain area. We call that a population. And then if you look at the whole groups of animals and plants and things like that in a given area, we're going to call that a community. So the question down here is, how is a population different from a community? And you're welcome to type in here. In fact, I would like you to type in your notes. So if you need to pause and open them up, that's fine. But a population is different from a community because a community is all of the different populations in a given area, like in a space, okay? So it's a population of deer plus the population of bear plus the population of butterflies plus the population of all the plants that may be eaten. That's the community. And that's really kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about communities of biotic things and also the abiotic things that exist within those communities. And we're really going to call that then the ecosystem. That's our house, okay? Once you look at the different ecosystems out there that have a bunch of different a bunch of communities in there, we actually group those together in something called a biome, and these are large naturally occurring communities of like flora and fauna occupying some sort of area or habitat. So, what are flora and fauna? If you haven't heard those terms before, if you don't know your fairies very well, flora is think of like flowers, those are the plants. And fauna, think about like a fawn, like a deer fawn. Fauna means the animals in a certain area. So flora and fauna are the plants and animals occupying a major habitat or area. We in Minnesota are extremely lucky. Like, we are a very, very rare state. We have 4 naturally occurring biomes in Minnesota. You go to Wisconsin and they don't have that. They have 2. They have deciduous forest and coniferous forest, and we have 1, we have 4, which is pretty amazing. So around us in Bloomington, we have the deciduous forest, and that means a forest that drops or loses its leaves in the fall. And you'll notice that kind of like strings its way all the way up to right around Bemidji, which would be up here in the northwestern corner of Minnesota. If you get north quite a ways, north of Brainerd, up towards the Boundary Waters and Duluth, that deciduous forest gradually kind of decreases and it becomes what we call coniferous forest. And coniferous forest is the evergreen forest, the pines, the spruces, the forests that don't drop their leaves. And definitely there's going to be some, deciduous trees mixed in there a little bit. But just like there's some coniferous trees mixed in down here. But the overwhelming majority of trees in these areas are evergreens. If you head out west towards western Minnesota and especially southwestern Minnesota, the trees give way to what we call prairie Glatt grassland, and that is actually a habitat or a biome that's been really, really affected, and it's very, very endangered. There's very little bit of it left because it is extremely good farmland. So people have, for now hundreds of years, plowed through that prairie grassland, and they've turned it into farms. And so if you go out to southwestern Minnesota, it's definitely full of farms. Now this is the biome that exists for everything out west of us, really, through the Dakotas. If you go up to the very, very, very top western corner, we have something called tall grass aspen parkland. Now this is kind of like a prairie, but it's also speckled with a lot of aspen trees. And they do lose their leaves, but it's also kind of a mix. We have the tall grass prairie, but we also have our tall prairie. Like they actually enjoy a lot of sun, but they usually are right on the edge of prairies. But these are the aspen parks. So we have 4 different biomes that exist here in Minnesota, which makes us a really cool and unique state. There's not a whole lot of other states that have 4 biomes in them. I can think of like California, probably, maybe some of the coastal ones like Oregon and Washington, maybe some mountainy ones, kind of like Colorado, but everything definitely east of us and south of us and west of us is going to be much less. So pretty neat. And I'm going to stop there. Hopefully you have a good Monday. No, what is today? I get lost because of all the crazy COVID stuff. Wednesday, I guess. And then we will jump into some of this animal stuff tomorrow, and I'm going to have you probably go outside and do a little project for me outside.